Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 28 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. Alongside my co-host and one of my closest friends, Nick Partain, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We cannot thank you enough for joining us here today. I have not forgotten about the two on the bottom of the screen here, but we cannot be thankful enough to have Kevin Connolly subbing in here as our third co-host here, and also Patrick McCormick, a part of our new rotational fourth co-host as well. Pat, welcome to the show. Kev, welcome to the show. And thank you for coming in on such short notice, especially on Major League Baseball opening day, fellas.
Thanks, Joe. It's a pleasure to talk to you and always great to talk sports. I look forward to the program over the next couple hours.
Joe, it's a lot of fun to be with you and can't wait to get into it.
It's going to be tons of fun. Nick, how are you, buddy? It's been a couple of weeks. You're finally better here, and I haven't texted you, and I do apologize. And I know we're telling the whole world here that I'm a terrible friend. But how are you feeling?
Yeah, 16th lighter, but I'm all right.
Hey, listen, I gotta give you credit for those that are wondering why Nick was on the DL or on the IL, a week ago rather. He had some wisdom teeth pulled. And it happens. And but to have a total of 4 and then 2 extra, boy, the kid looks like a chipmunk. That's for damn sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this. We have Kevin and Pat here, who were also a part of the Zoom interview series as well. So to have them on the podcast, I did say in the interview series that we're going to get them on the podcast at some point, and here they are. Really tons of fun going to be. Fellas, let's get things started here. And it's as we said, there is a lot going on. Opening day, we keep politics and everything else out of this show. We try and keep it as positive as possible. But to start things off in terms of positivity, we do want to discuss and just say here we want to welcome in our new partners at minutetobelltime.com and the Eastern Observer. We are going to be having them on all the time with our brand new show, The Essential Wrestling Podcast, on Tuesday with Al Carl and also with Tyler Adelle. So please visit them at minutetoOpeningBell.com, I believe it is. See, I don't even know who I'm getting on here. Minutes to Bell Time. There we go. So I'm a terrible advertiser as well. But yeah, and Nick knows this, but we'll get to all that in just a few moments. But fellas, let's get things started. It's opening day. I have the Mets game on right next to me. And right now it's 1-0 Mets. We're all Yankees fans here. And the cool thing is that there was, a Garrett Cole sighting. I think he looked pretty damn good, fellas. Let's hear it.
Yeah, as good as advertised. Complete game, if you want to call it that. Only allowed the 1 home run to Adam Eaton, was really his only blemish. I think he had 1 walk outside of that 1 hit, so it's as good as you were going to get. He's the best pitcher in baseball, and that's what you're expecting.
Cole was definitely great last night. Behind in counts to start, but he definitely buckled down, and I think he really hit his form in that 4th and 5th inning. The shot to Eaton was obviously a blemish, but that's going to happen when you're on the mound. He really settled down, and I wanted to see him pitch a couple more innings. I thought he was primed for at least 6 and 7, but because of the weather, we only got 5. But 1-0, hopefully to a 10-2, 12-0 record for Cole. Gets the Yankees started on a good note.
Yeah, I mean, perfect start, and I think you have to add to it. They didn't have to use the bullpen. They're looking at a bullpen game in a couple days, and it was a rain-shortened game. You got the win, and bullpen's fine, so they should be ready to go at least for the next couple days.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to tell you, just the way Cole came out there, and not only that, but to see a sporting event and one that counts. There was something that was said on ESPN as well. It was the game averaged yesterday, the 7:00 game, that is 4 million views. That is the most viewed sporting event on ESPN or on any network, most viewed baseball game rather. Since 2011. So obviously everyone wanted to watch some sort of baseball. And even not only that, but also a sport that counts on the 4 major sports spectrum. I see Nick is shaking his head over there because he's a big soccer guy. We'll get into that a little bit later. But let's hear why Nick was shaking his head. And fellas, also, because you guys are new to this, please We like it where there's banter. So please, if you disagree with us, please do not hesitate, and Nick knows this, do not hesitate on attacking us. We love it.
Of course, baseball got a ton of viewers because people are starving for sports, yet they've ignored a sport that's been on for months now. Soccer started out in Germany like 2 or 3 months ago. They finished their season. England picked up after that. They finished their season. MLS started back up a couple of weeks ago. They've been having a tournament on ESPN constantly lately, this MLS is Back tournament. The group stage just ended last night. The group stage had some outstanding games, too. It wasn't like boring soccer because these teams were just coming back after a long layoff. There were a lot of really good games, a ton of goals scored in second half stoppage time. It's really disappointing to see that the public didn't latch on to it, being nothing else was on to watch than soccer. But I digress.
I think we're getting into the we're finally getting into soccer. Some people are. I know the bottom two really are not MLS guys, but let's hear your thought, Kevin Connolly. I see you're itching to say your thought here.
I don't have like an argument to that. I mean, soccer has been on, and I've watched a couple games, and I'm not really that big into soccer, but I mean, it's baseball, America's pastime, and it doesn't hurt when it's the New York Yankees, arguably the most notable franchise in all of sports, against the reigning World Series champions, in the first, I guess, big four sports back in 4, 5, 6 months. Who knows at this point?
We're all over the place. It's all over the place. And we're what I don't even know what today's date is. July 24th. There we go. And it's been over 125 days that we've been in quarantine here. So, Pat, your thought on what Nick had said about MLS?
I have nothing against the MLS. I mean, I'm so sports deprived. I've been a big fan of ESPNU. They've had the College Cup on a couple of times. I watched that. My problem is, I guess it's just a me problem. I don't know enough about the MLS. Like, if the NYCFC's on, yes, I'll tune in. If the Red Bulls are on MSG, I'll tune in. I just don't know any of the players. So it's just really hard to get into it without knowing about the sport. I have a lot of respect for the guys. I know a couple PA announcers who work for the MLS, and it's such a grind to get to the MLS Cup. And I've been a couple of years ago, I was following the Red Bulls during that run. It's just hard to top baseball's headline where you have opening day, you have Scherzer against Cole, so many other storylines coming back with the Yankees trying to take that next step, the Nationals being the reigning champions, no fans. It's just, I have respect for the pro soccer. It's just everyone else isn't going to cover it. And I guess that's my fault for not reading up on my own. But I was looking forward to the baseball. You have the sports radio, you have the ESPN, you have everyone else tuned in, ready to go and see what the players are ready to do after such a long layoff.
Well, also, there's been, I know I'm going to get the letters wrong, NWSL, I think, is that the women's soccer league in America? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think they've been in a tournament too, and I think that came back before the MLS.
It did, yes.
Yeah.
NWSL is starting to latch on, and I actually know a couple of the play-by-play guys over there, and really, really amazing stuff with NWSL, and just the game of soccer in general is slowly beginning to grow. But to get back on topic here, we know baseball obviously is America's pastime, and with the four major sports, unfortunately, soccer will eventually get there, but we're not there yet. And baseball having a game that counts, and especially for our New York Yankees, all four of us here, it was definitely a sight to see before the 2 feet of water in each respective dugouts. That was definitely a sight to see, but also it was very difficult also to hear the call yesterday. How tough was it not only to see no fans in the stands, fellas, because we've never seen this in our entire lifetime, but also how difficult was it to hear Matt Vasgersian? I have nothing against him, but to hear something completely different in terms of in the studio and hearing a delay, and then seeing also these camera guys being told to evacuate their positions because lightning was coming. It almost looked like a college broadcast, Patrick McCormick.
I have no problem with Matt, and I may be in the minority here. I love listening to A-Rod talk. I think A-Rod's a genius. He has so much good stuff to say. Anytime A-Rod can talk with Matt, I really think it's a pretty good broadcast, and I wasn't really paying much attention to the broadcasters. I was just happy the Yankees were back on TV. My only issue was the Yankees' fourth run. Giancarlo Stanton hit his single. I had no idea why the guy couldn't score from third or what happened. She didn't know where the ball was. It was just quick hit. The ball came in. You didn't really see that. But other than that, just happy to see Yankees on TV. I like A-Rod. I like Matt. So, I mean, that's something you just have to iron out as the season goes on, give them benefit of the doubt there. And going to the other game, maybe jumping, but Tim Kirchin had his power go out right before our broadcast, so there's going to be definitely things that go into it. I mean, I could watch a game without broadcasters. I'm just that happy it's on.
Yeah, for me, the fans don't really change anything for regular season baseball, I feel like. Like, if I had to pick of all the 4 major sports, you feel the fans the least in a regular season baseball game. Playoff time, you definitely feel it. But for me, the regular season, them playing without fans, I'm not going to be able to tell the difference. It's going to be basically status quo. They're piping in some of that artificial noise. It's pretty close if they can get the timing right. Like, the sound is right, but a lot of times it takes a minute. Like, it shouldn't take 10 seconds after a strikeout for the sound to go off, but they're working on it. And like Patrick mentioned, that camera gaff was hilarious. All of a sudden, we're behind the catcher when the ball's in right field. I had no idea what was going on. Even the announcer, because they're not there, had no idea what was going on. He's like, and it lands in right field. So, like, things like that, they're going to have to iron out. It was a little weird. For me, A-Rod needs to get his, like, professionalism of broadcasting down. Like, he can be a little word-mouthy, bad, like, just kind of mumbling through sentences every once in a while. But the knowledge is definitely there. He's an entertaining guy to have in the booth, but he's got to get a little better at getting his words out correctly.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll get there eventually. But listen, he's a baseball player. He's not a broadcaster. But fellas, let's move over to the West Coast. And hey, listen, there's a brand new right fielder in Los Angeles, and his name is Mookie Betts. And I know all 4 of us are extremely happy that he is gone from the East Coast. And not only that, he is gone for, you figure, his entire career, where now he gets to call home the Chavez Ravine for the Los Angeles Dodgers. 12 years, $365 million extension. Fellas, I don't like the deal for the Dodgers. I'm sorry. And I might be in the minority here saying that. And because he's 27 years old, and we've seen also with, Bryce Harper, obviously, last year. He had a fairly decent season. But he signed, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 11, 12, or 13 years in that range. To me, 12 years is a long time. And he's going to be 39 years old when this contract expires. I don't know. I just don't see over 10 years being something that if I were the general manager, would want to sign. Any disagreeers?
I don't disagree, but you're going on market value. If you don't offer him that many years, he's going to leave. He's going to go somewhere else because someone's going to give it to him. So at this point, with the Dodgers, they have a very good quote-unquote cap situation. They don't have a lot of big long-term contracts on their book right now. So to have this be the one blemish when it comes to the time that he starts getting, declining is not such a bad thing. He's 27. You got to figure you can get 4 or 5 good years out of him. The DH looks like it's going to be in the NL permanently. So even if his legs go but his bat stays, you can hang on to his value a couple extra years. Whereas normally in the NL, he'd become a major liability if he lost his ability to play right field. But let's go back quickly. Speaking about the Yankees, there might be a moment in a couple of months where we're not so happy he's a Dodger. Let's not get carried away here. Just because he's not a Red Sox doesn't mean he's completely out of our hair. If we see him in the World Series on the other quote-unquote best team in baseball, we're not going to be too happy. But I think the contract is fair because you're going to have to capitalize on the first half of it. Like every other big contract, you're going to pay big-time money for his prime. The last few years are going to hurt. But for the Dodgers, you're trying to win now. You haven't had a World Series win in almost 30 years now. And for a top-tier franchise, that's unacceptable. They need to win. They went out. They got the best player available on the trade market, gave him the money to keep him. They have an excellent young core around him. Everything's in place. They can't be quibbling over a couple $1 million.
I agree. It's market value. You're going to have to eat something eventually if you're the team. He's an all-star, Gold Glove caliber player. He's gotten a lot better with his bat. I don't think the Dodgers are going to regret it anytime in the near future. But we'll have to wait and see. It is a little long, if you're asking me, in terms of length of the contract. But it's what's going around. Everyone resets the value. Like Mike Trout set the bar. You look at the NFL. Quarterbacks set the market. Look at Patrick Mahomes' deal. Like everyone wants to reset that market, and players are either going to exceed that value or come in just under it. And Mookie Betts was just another one that falls into line.
It's funny, a quick comment about Mahomes' deal. It's so funny about how in the NFL, Chiefs fans are so hyped that Mahomes got 10 years, and we're here quibbling about the last couple of years of this Betts contract where, that could be pretty rough. It's so funny how in the NFL, getting a guy long-term on a solid amount of money is actually a good thing because you know how fast the cap rises. Where in baseball, those last 5 years could be really rough, and fans are going to regret the signing at that point.
You look at the Dodgers where they were over 2 of their last 3 years. They're in the World Series, and it's one of those, I don't want to call it a desperation move, but it's a desperation move because you want to get 5 to 6 solid years where you hopefully win 2 to 3 World Series because you're so close those last couple years where if you have to pay a lot just to get those wins on the front end, it's definitely worth it. And Betts also seems like the type of guy you don't want to pay someone that much money to mentor players, but he'll be a good mentor to some players and help that next flock of Dodgers coming through the system. So you pay for the player, but you also pay for the leadership and how he carries himself, which he showed with the Red Sox, nothing but a professional, a champion, and you want that pedigree on your team. So if you're not producing in the back half of the contract, he could lead by example and help younger players or help the team get over that hump and keep the Dodgers at a winning franchise in the National League.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, going back to Nick's point, though, with, the last few years, we look back at Alex Rodriguez and we said, oh, my God, the last few years, is his contract ever going to end? And I remember back in 2007, I was 12 years old, and I remember looking at it, and I was like, oh, my God, he's going to be there all the way until, I'm 20 years old and, or 22, rather. And I think, what was it, 2015 or 2014, he played his last, or I think it was 2015 or 16, he played his last game as a Yankee and as a professional ball player. And it's crazy where, those last few years, he was a special assistant to Brian Cashman. He was also, I think, what was it, Nick or Kev? He was was he a scout or what was he? He was something that was just.
It was like a scout / hitting coach / special assistant. It was like him, Carlos Beltran, Nick Switzer. It was a bunch of those Yankees who on the tail end of their career, there was like, all right, we got to get these guys off the field, but we still got to honor their contract. So let's just give them something.
Right. And that's the whole thing. And that's kind of what I think of what's going to happen here. But then again, everything is different. And also with the Yankees too, they also have Giancarlo Stanton for the next however many years. So, you shoot yourself in the foot twice. We'll see what happens. I mean, hey, listen, four straight seasons with at least, this is a pretty cool stat, 4 straight seasons with at least 100 runs, 40 doubles, 20 home runs. And that streak is tied with Robinson Cano, who's on television right now, Albert Pujols, and also that is one of the longest streaks in the expansion era since 1961. He also has four Gold Gloves. Excuse me. He's also since 2016 has 93 defensive runs saved in the last 4 seasons, and that is ranked second in all of Major League Baseball. So many good things to talk about here. Continuing, fellas, how does, with all of this coronavirus, with the pandemic, the economic fallout, everything that's going on here with this 60-game season, obviously it's late July and it's opening day. How does this affect, JT Realmuto, the likes of these other free agents? And what are we going to see in terms of market value? Did Mookie Betts just destroy all of baseball for this upcoming winter?
Well, I think Betts is a quick sign that things aren't going to change. People are going to get the same amount of money. This isn't like the NHL or the NFL where the salary cap isn't going to go up and it's going to muck up free agent spending because of that. I don't think these owners are going to really care that Corona is going to limit their revenue this year. I think they're still going to spend the same way they normally would because they know if they don't put a good product on the field, they're not going to get any revenue. So they understand that it's not going to really change anything free agent-wise. Maybe for some of the lower tier free agents, we might not see small market teams spending on lower tier guys, maybe grabbing those $5-10 million players. We might see something like that dip on teams like that. But teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, they're going to end up getting back into it eventually. The Dodgers, teams like that are going to spend. They're not going to change their strategy because of this whole thing. those owners have too much money and too much at stake trying to win championships to cut corners now.
Yeah, I could see maybe a little value decreasing for like your mid-tier free agents. I don't think we're going to see anything drastic where there's contract holdouts till the start of next spring training, like we saw 2 off seasons ago with Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. Just going back to the whole Mookie Betts thing, I think it was a great deal for both sides, Betts and the Dodgers, to just get it done, get it out of the way, and now you don't have to worry about that anymore going into the offseason. And then it's not something looming over their heads this season. I think that was great for both sides. But, yeah, I don't see any drastic measures where a top-tier free agent is going to lose millions upon millions upon millions because of fallout because of the pandemic. Because, everyone in Major League Baseball, you'd assume, is hoping that the start of next season, everything will be back to normal. Stands will be at full capacity. 162-game season. TV deals are all set out and everything's back to normal. That's the hope. And obviously you got to put contingency plans for something if something goes awry. But I think the hope is everything's back to normal and we're playing 162 next year.
The Dodgers, let me restart. The signing of Betts and Harper and Machado like 2 years ago, is it really going to affect anyone? When Judge becomes a free agent, I don't think that's going to affect anyone. The Garrett Coles, that's not going to affect anyone. It's going to be very interesting when you see a couple years ago with like the Dallas Keuchels and the Craig Criminals, those guys who did stuff and they were looking for a big deal, but then they held out to June or almost July doing all the minor league stuff. How long those players should get another deal? The superstars, or does he get paid because they proved themselves? But it's those guys who are good for a couple of years and who struggled to get those long-term deals. And you saw that a lot with a lot of guys holding out of spring training. See what happens with them next.
That's true. And you know what? It's very funny you bring up you bring up some of these players. Pat, you got Bryce Harper, $330 million. Giancarlo Stanton, $325 million. That contract was signed when Stanton was with Miami. Garrett Cole, $324 million. Manny Machado, $300 million. And obviously Mookie Betts now becomes player number 6 to receive a contract worth at least $300 million in all of Major League Baseball in the history of the MLB. Really, really fun stuff and really weird stuff, too, is not only we're seeing, again, cardboard cutouts in the stands, but we're still seeing money getting spent, getting thrown around here. And, we also look back at our good friend at Twitter, which is an absolute disaster because, everyone's always says stay off of social media. It's such a toxic place. And really, I'm sure Boston Red Sox owner John Henry probably thinks that because the moment that Mookie Betts officially, quote unquote, signed that contract, and when he took the picture in front of the Dodger team store with general manager Andrew Friedman and manager Dave Roberts, I'm sure that a lot of, and not only I'm sure, but we saw it, a lot of the Boston Red Sox fans and the faithful, they considered this departure for Mookie Betts similar to John Lester. And where John Henry is just putting a lot of his assets into Liverpool and not so much with the Red Sox. And now we're going through a major retool here. And now I think we could say here, as Yankees fans, diehard Yankees fans, all 4 of us here, I think not only are we happy, but it's also nice to see the Red Sox faithful suffer just a little bit.
Well, so you mentioned John Henry. First of all, good choice with Liverpool. Kind of a good idea, the way that worked out for them. Reigning Champions League champs. They just won the Premier League. They're basically the best soccer team in the world right now until they get dethroned. And you talk about them losing Mookie Betts. John Henry is going to say, well, what happened in 2018? They won a World Series with Mookie Betts. You can let a guy leave. They've already won. The pressure wasn't there for John Henry to have to spend an ungodly amount of money to win. Dave Dombrowski put this team in a very tough financial spot by making all those signings to push for that title. They got the title, but now they have to understand you're going to have to go through a mini rebuild with all the bad contracts they got stuck with. Same thing with John Lester. They won World Series with John Lester. So the fans weren't that upset when he left. When you have all that hardware behind you, it's a lot easier to palate these kind of things.
Well, and another thing too, before you guys in the bottom here get want to contribute for a second, but I've also seen, and while I'm looking at a whole bunch of these responses, a lot of people and a few NBC Sports Boston writers, opinion writers, so we'll throw our opinions here, have considered Mookie Betts leaving like Carl Yastrzemski leaving. Obviously, he didn't leave, but that's the type of player that they think that they saw walk out the door. You guys agree with that? I don't know if that's the way Mookie Betts is, the type of player that he is, and the stats that I just read off here, he's an all-around one of the best players, top 3, in my opinion, players in all of Major League Baseball. I don't know. I'd have to agree with some of that thought, fellas. What do you guys think?
He's the quality of player of a guy like Yaz, but he didn't build up the Boston reputation of a legend of Yaz yet. I mean, if he signed another contract with Boston, he would have become a player on that mantle. But for now, it was the fact that he was that talented, and it's like losing that caliber of player. But he hadn't built up that much history, I feel like, in Boston to be that highly regarded. Great player, but he didn't have like when you think of Carl Yastrzemski, you think of the Red Sox. This is like an all-time icon type of guy, and Betts was on his way to that, but he wasn't at that level of fame yet, Boston-wise.
Yeah, he wasn't there long enough. He was good, but he wasn't great. I mean, you could even throw in like a David Ortiz-esque player. I mean, you think Carl Yastrzemski, you think David Ortiz, you think Boston Red Sox. You think Mookie Betts, you're like, all right, yeah, he's on the Red Sox. But if you say, name me the 4 best players in Red Sox history, Mookie Betts isn't one of them.
I just think he wasn't there long enough. Betts was only there for 6 years. He played 52 games in his first year, so 5 full seasons. I don't feel like 5 years is enough for a baseball player to really impact a franchise, to be a franchise player. Yes, he won the World Series, but if Aaron Judge leaves the Yankees after 5 years, he's a good player, but I don't think he's a big part of Yankee history. You just have to look at guys who spend that 10 years, 12 years, guys like Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, or for the Red Sox sense, Big Papi, and those guys who won with them multiple times. You win multiple championships, or in the Yazzie sense, you play with them for a decent amount of time, you're considered a franchise guy, but 5-6 years, I just don't think with the length of the baseball career, it's long enough to be considered a franchise guy.
And not only that but also the length of professional sports careers are also expanding as well. They're also increasing too. And now we're starting to see guys in baseball. They're playing, more than 10 years, some more than 12, 13 years. We're seeing obviously hockey, which we'll get to a little bit later. We see 20 plus years. We see Jaromir Jagr hitting 25 years, obviously, when he was there, when he was here. Also, Joe Thornton is obviously past 20 years now. So, and those guys are, those are the Mount Rushmores of their respective teams. I would say if Mookie Betts really did sign that contract, he would have been probably on the Mount Rushmore of Boston Red Sox royalty in their Hall of Fame. I also believe that number 50 would have been retired 100%. Obviously a little, too early to tell because he's only 27 years old. But, guys, we spoke about the deep pockets earlier and how, Jeter Downs and Alex Verdugo went the other way. The Dodgers took on the whole David Price contract. That took a lot of money out of the hands of the Red Sox. But they still have one player that can make a big impact, and that is in the designated hitter role with JD Martinez. Now it's looking a lot like, as Nick said earlier, that the DH position in the National League and in all of baseball is most likely here to stay. How does this impact, especially because this is also an opt-out year following the end of 2020, how does this impact a guy and probably the only designated hitter or full-time DH hitter in all of baseball in terms of a contract now? Because you figure now you have another 15 teams that are going to be vying for a JD Martinez who doesn't really have to play the field.
I would be hesitant if I was JD Martinez to opt out. We all agreed that we don't think the money is going to dry up that much in free agency, but I'm not big on taking that risk if I'm him. He still has a lot of money coming to him from Boston if he chooses to opt in. I don't think those extra 15 teams are enough of an incentive for him to opt out because with a, like you said, even though they have the DH, doesn't mean you want to pigeonhole yourself into having an aging hitter there. You'd kind of like to have it as a rotating spot or a spot for a guy you already have that's getting older that you don't want to have in the field anymore. So I really don't think that many of those 15 teams would be shelling out gigantic money to come after JD Martinez if you were to opt out again. I think his best bet is to stay with Boston and play out that big contract he still has.
Yeah, I mean, just moving off of JD Martinez, I mean, look at the Mets. I mean, with the universal DH this year, they can have Yoenis Cespedes in the lineup, and he's generated their only run today so far with a chance to win the game in the ninth. I think it'll give players like that a chance to play a little longer. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I think Martinez, he still has some legs under him if he wants to play the field. But players like a David Ortiz now might emerge in the next 10 years in the National League. I mean, if he was in the National League, he's not playing much longer. Like, he doesn't have the career he has in the Red Sox. I think it has the potential to have more players in Major League Baseball, and you might find a couple more stars.
I think JD should stay in Boston. I mean, say the Red Sox took a hit by letting Betts go, but if you look at the history of the Red Sox, they could retool pretty quickly. Once they got rid of Beckett and all those guys, they retooled pretty quickly and won the World Series when they got rid of Beckett and Carl Crawford. They still have a pretty decent core with Michael Chavis, who's coming up. You still have Andrew Benintendi, Xander Bogaerts. So the pieces are there, and if you could build up quickly and then maybe you're getting better, spend some of that money you have to build a piece. The Red Sox window's closed for this year and maybe next year, but there is time for them with those core pieces in order to make a run. And I never really count the Red Sox out.
Yeah, those guys Patrick mentioned are young too. Chavis is young,
Yeah.
Benintendi's young, Bogaerts is just hitting his prime. So he's right. They definitely have plenty of time to build up another pitching staff that can get them to a World Series.
I mean, just a fun fact. Doesn't mean anything. I was at Chavis's Major League debut down in Tampa last year, and he had an absolute rope up the middle. Doesn't mean anything, but I was just there for it.
Well, I have to ask you this now because you brought up Tampa. I'm assuming you saw a few rats running around in Tropicana Field when you were there?
No, I mean, all right, the outside of it is really ugly, but the inside I didn't think was that bad at all. I really didn't. I like the outside, yes. The outside of it looks like it's miserable. It doesn't look like a stadium. It looks like an abandoned stadium. But inside, like the field, like obviously the catwalks and stuff, it didn't come into effect in the game I was there. But I didn't hate it. I didn't come away looking like I was like, oh man, this is the worst stadium I've been to. I've been to the Oakland Coliseum and I came away with that one saying, oh man, this is the worst stadium I've ever been to. But I didn't come away with that when I went to Tropicana Field.
Wow, I'm shocked. And not only that, but also I know, Pat, you've been traveling all over the place. And what you've done, I mean, I know really you're a hockey guy, but have you ever been to the Trop?
I've been to the Trop. I've been to Oakland, and the Trop's actually pretty cool. It's the first place I ever saw a game in a dome. Mm-hmm. And you sit further enough down. We were down the left field line. You sit further enough down the line. You're 20 rows off the field for $15. So you're seeing a major league game from close. The dome atmosphere is cool. I mean, it's kind of weird with the upper tier completely empty, but the Rays were a good team last year, and Kevin Cash has done a good job with that team. So it was actually really cool to get the feel. And if I'm living down in Tampa, I mean, I'm buying season tickets in those seats for $15. It's baseball. They're a good brand of baseball. I mean, they don't have Snell this year. Oakland, I've been for football and baseball, and Oakland was just rough. There's so many tough angles. I mean, I was down there when the Yankees got swept in the 4-game series, and it was just a tough place to watch a game. There's really no flair to it. For a Raider game, it was a little different. I went to the last Raider-Jacksonville game. I mean, I'm digressing here by talking football, but you look at the Oakland Coliseum, once the third quarter start, I looked at my dad, who's 6'3", a bigger guy than I, and I was scared because the Raiders started falling apart, and once the third quarter started, it was a parade to the jail. Everyone started getting arrested. So it's really tough to watch a football game there. But Tampa, I would definitely watch a baseball game there. Oakland had a cool feel for football, but not really a cool feel for baseball.
Yeah, and it's very funny. It's almost as if that you both read my mind, because that's a perfect segue into our next topic, which is all about the Toronto Blue Jays. And it's really sad because And I know Nick knows exactly what I'm going to say. But it's sad because the Jays finally have a home, and it is here stateside, and it's about 400 miles north in Buffalo. And there's a lot of jokes going around saying, "Oh, they're gonna be called the Buffalo Blue Jays. They're playing in a AAA facility." And you know what I think to myself, and I know me and Nick have been thinking about this because, I know as Islanders fans, we've been in this predicament way too many times. And now we are starting to feel for those Blue Jay fans. And just to go not only off topic here, but, I got to tell you, this is all opinion based here. Kudos to the Canadian government for saying no to the Blue Jays, and it's not because of the Jays, because it's not them. It's because of everyone down in the Tampa Bay area and the Miami, Florida area, and both teams would have been going to the Rogers Center for home contests against the Jays. So the Canadian government and Canada and the province of Ontario does not want to be a part of that, especially when the NHL is going to be heading just not only a couple of blocks away, but they also have those bubbles and whatnot. But yeah, kudos to them. Kudos also to PNC Park for saying no, and just stay on your property in Buffalo. It's really not that big of a deal. Again, you don't want to increase these cases up in Toronto. Especially when they're showing better signs than we are here. But again, I didn't mean to go off topic. I just wanted to say that this is an opinion-based show. But today it was announced the Buffalo Bison, their AAA team, will be hosting, or I guess they'll be calling home in Buffalo for the 2020 season. They will be having their first home series, though, at Nationals Park against Washington. That's going to be weird, and I cannot wait to see that. Fellas, what do you guys think about Canada not allowing Toronto in their home ballpark and not allowing a possible disaster that could be international?
First things first, the Jays fans know nothing of the plight of the Islander fan. Do not compare these situations. The Jays fans can't go to these games. They could care less where the games are being played. Nobody could care less where the games are being played. Rob Manfred has teams playing in a freaking cornfield and thinks that that's okay. So venue means nothing in a fanless environment. Who cares? This is basically status quo. Whatever. They can play on a AAA field. It's baseball. None of the fields are uniform in size anyway. Every wall's different everywhere. It's not like it's the kind of thing where you're changing the integrity where the field size is any different. All the dimensions are going to be exactly normal. So
lighting is different.
That's nothing. It's just whatever. They're playing in a different spot. Good for Canada for not letting unsafe environment come in there without, the protocols being up to stuff. Because who knows if baseball really has their testing down pat, because we know we had some issues with that during their mini spring training where teams weren't showing up because they weren't getting tested or results weren't coming back. So if I was Toronto, I would have been scared too, especially because I'm housing half of an entire National Hockey League in the same town, and you don't want anything to get crossed over into that bubble and ruin the revenue they're going to get from that. So good for Toronto for making the right decision. Who cares? They have to play in Buffalo. They'll deal with it. It's a 60-game season. They probably won't make the playoffs anyway. Oh, with this new format, they might. Forgot about that. So, but regardless, it doesn't matter. There's no fans there. It's a ballpark. They'll figure it out.
If I am a young up-and-coming team like the Blue Jays are with a lot of star talent like the Blue Jays have, and I was told I had to relocate to Buffalo, I'd be very concerned. Now, if they don't follow the Sabres, just go and play baseball. But the Blue Jays are what the Sabres have been saying they are for the last 5 to 7 years, an up-and-coming team who keeps on rebuilding and getting nowhere. And you see that with them clearing house. Okay, I digress. But I think it's better than them playing in Pittsburgh or Baltimore, because Buffalo, there aren't any other teams there. And though the travel may not overlap that much with the Blue Jays going to Pittsburgh or Baltimore, you can have 4 teams in the same vicinity, which gives teams more of a rate to get infected and less of a chance for baseball being played. So if you keep more teams isolated and further away from each other, you have a better chance of keeping the season going. That's why Buffalo is a better choice than Pittsburgh, which got denied, and Baltimore. So I mean, no one's going to beat the game anyway, so why not keep them in Buffalo? And they have a young, exciting team. Just stick their course, and they'll probably make a run at the 7 or 8 seed if they do what they can.
That's so wild. I'm sorry, Kevin. I know you're about to say this. I'm just saying that is so wild. We'll get into that in a second, but Kev, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just hope they don't have to make hope they don't make the playoffs and have to play games up there in October when it'll be 30 degrees.
Maybe even less. Where there's sometimes where we've seen some of the roads get shut down up there, and the major highways get shut down up there because there's lake effect snow coming in about 3 minutes, where there's 6 inches in about 25 minutes. Very, very weird to see the Buffalo Blue Jays. Now, it doesn't really sound that great. But again, yeah, I know. Okay, fine, Nick. I won't say that with the Islanders or compare it. But the reason why you bring that up is because, yes, okay, the Islanders don't have a home, whatever. They're still trying to figure it out now. But regardless of the fans, this is days away. And yes, I know it doesn't really matter, but there are certain protocols in terms of, lighting. You're playing night games. All of the television spots are taken right away. So it kind of is a problem. It definitely is a problem. And it doesn't matter if it's a ballpark or not. You have to make it up to certain standard. And every single league, whether it be college, whether it be professional, and especially for Patrick, who is the official scorer for the Brooklyn Cyclones as well, for the single A Brooklyn Cyclones of the New York Mets farm team. I said that completely off, all botched and everything. But yeah, ballpark's not a ballpark, but every single one is not only lighted differently, it's completely configured differently, and it needs to meet certain standards. Pat, your thoughts on that, especially one who works in the summer at a minor league ballpark?
I think the AAA standard should be okay because you're getting those guys ready to go to the MLB, and I think minor league baseball does a really good job getting everything ready up to standards. I mean, with the Cyclones and Coney Island, that's in great shape too. The only thing you have to worry about in Coney Island is fireworks going out during the game, which is really cool. It's like Sandlot or a fog rolling in. Other than that, what I've seen from behind the scenes on the minor league aspect, at least on the Mets, and they do a really good job and keep that as professional as possible. Coney Island is probably one of the best ballparks for fans. I know there aren't any fans for the Blue Jays in the minor leagues, so they do a really good job getting the fans excited for baseball. So I think they hold minor league baseball to a higher standard, and I think it'll be okay for this season, especially for the Blue Jays. And I would trust the Blue Jays playing a full season in Buffalo if they needed fans too, because it's AAA. They can hold bigger crowds, and people just love watching baseball. So I don't think much is going to be taken away from going from the Rogers Center to Buffalo.
Anyone want to add anything else before we get into the next thing, which actually has to do, we spoke about television, we spoke about whatever it is, and I know 3 out of 4 of us here, I don't mean to exclude Nick here, but I know 3 out of 4 of us here have, we work in the industry, and this is something that was brought up here on Twitter, actually, by the New York Post, Zach Braziller, and actually a fan as well. And Kevin, we know of Zach way too well. And there was something where it was said about, there's no fans here. There's a rain delay. Why can't we just push the game up? Why can't, if there's something in the forecast, why can't we just move the game forward or back or whatever the case may be? And what is the problem with that, fellas? Let's start with the ones that, again, no offense, Nick, Kevin, and Pat. Let's start, and then I want to hear Nick's thought as an outsider.
So I understand the point, but there are some logistics. I mean, these games are slotted to be on television, and networks have certain programming before and after the games. So that's one reason. 2 is you're telling the players to get there for 7 o'clock, and you can't tell them at 10 a.m. the game's going to be at 1. I mean, you can, but I feel like that's a little unfair to the players. It's not like it's a little league game or something like that. It's still Major League Baseball. And then it comes down to the pitchers. I mean, like I just said, that primarily affects the pitchers. If you tell them at 10 o'clock you got to play at 1, I don't know how that really works. But I think the biggest thing is the television times and the television money, because that's where the MLB is making a lot of their money this year. It's on the television contracts. And you can't tell a ESPN or the Yes Network or SNY that the game you originally had for 7 o'clock, now you have to get rid of your 1 o'clock programming because the game's being moved up. I don't see how that works. I think that's one of the biggest issues. It's a great idea, but I think that's one of the biggest issues with it.
In a regular year, I see where that's a problem, but ESPN hasn't really been showing much, and especially with a day like yesterday where you have the thunderstorms were 2 days ago, you can see they're coming. If you even move the game back to 4, you give Garrett Cole and Max Scherzer time to prepare. You give them a day in advance, and yesterday had a little loophole in it because Juan Soto did test positive for COVID, so you want to make sure the ballpark was okay, which is another topic on the whole thing. You got to test positive for COVID. You don't have any tests back, but you play the game anyway. Which brings me to the next part. With the rain delay, the leagues are talking about keeping the players as far apart as possible. And then you have a 2.5-hour rain delay yesterday, and you cancel the game right after that. To the credit of the MLB and the Nationals, the radar did change. I was watching it, and at 9 o'clock, it looked like there's a window from 10 to 2 a.m., and then at 10 o'clock, there wasn't any window. The rain moved up north, kept on moving. But I think they should have looked to, with a 1 or 2 day window, you see the thunderstorms in the forecast opening day. Scherzer against Cole, everyone's excited to see a 9-inning game. You see those thunderstorms are there, you move it to 5 and try to play the game from 5 to 8, 5 to 8:30 before that storm comes in. It's not always perfect, but there are ways to move around ESPN programming to do that.
Nick, your thought as an outsider, and the reason why I call you an outsider is because not only are you are the Eastern Observer's mathematician, but now again, for someone that doesn't really work in the television side of things, what are your thoughts from when you're sitting, with your friends or at your at your couch wondering, can we move this game up, especially if there's no fans?
I mean, we're starting to get to a lot of people getting back to normal working time, so I'm sure a lot of the casual fans would be pissed off if their game is supposed to be at 7 after they got home from work, and all of a sudden, no, it's going to go on at 1 while you're still at your desk. Good luck, you're going to miss today's game. All the television ratings would plummet. Games like that happened all the time. But I think the biggest problem is that baseball players would riot if you called them at 10 a.m. and said, hey, your 7 o'clock game is at 1, be there. They're going to lose their minds. These are creatures of habit, especially like Kevin mentioned, the pitchers. Those guys are very, very, very routine on days that they pitch. You cannot change the time of a game the morning of if you think it's going to rain by 6 hours. That's not going to fly. Maybe you get away with moving it to 4. But 1 o'clock, no. There are people either rioting or not showing up for games if you're going to pull stuff like that. Not going to happen.
It's so tough because we speak about regimen. You speak about the routine. It's very funny because there's a rule, obviously, the brand new rule in Major League Baseball where there's no spitting, there's no gum chewing, there's no high fives, there's no whatever. And yesterday I was keeping an eye on everybody. And also, obviously, you see a lot of the pitchers, they lick their hand for grip and everything like that. And it was wild to see after the first pitch of the 2020 season, Max Scherzer, he went to exchange a ball right away. And we saw that was going to be a new thing. It's
quickly, I don't think that's because of the new COVID. That's because they wanted the ball for the Hall of Fame for the first pitch.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
the same thing.
Yes, that is true. But also, again, there are times when they were saying that they could have some sort of like a towel, or they could have like a mini water bottle or something like that, where
pitchers can have a wet rag on them instead of taking their hand. They can touch the rag. It's different.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But we're seeing now the routine of these players, such as the aforementioned Max Scherzer, where sometimes you spit, sometimes you lick. We saw Gary Sanchez a couple of times, which I'm sure he'll probably get a warning or a fine, where he did take off his catcher's helmet and spit a few times. It's just the routine. And again, something with television too, it's all routine because everyone has a routine for a 1 o'clock game, a 4 o'clock game, and a 7 o'clock game, and then or even a 10 o'clock, well, not 10 o'clock, but 1, 4, 7. And if you mess with that, we might have some issues. And we saw, obviously, with the issues prior to this season starting, not only with money on both sides, but also with testing, etc. It's wild to see this year, guys, where the Mets are benefiting from the universal designated hitter. Kevin spoke about it earlier with Yoenis Cespedes and other players that can really be a benefactor of this new universal designated hitter. And really, the Mets just can't get it right, fellas. Obviously, as I said, we're all Yankees fans here. But again, for the team that's in Queens, they can't get it right. Marcus Stroman out with a torn calf muscle. And in a 60-game season, how much does this hurt the Mets?
I mean, a ton. What surprised me the most that I didn't really think about going into this shortened baseball season is that the win-loss records are going to be a lot tighter. All the projections I saw had like first and fourth place teams separated by maybe 3-4 games. Like teams aren't going to have enough time to distance themselves and show true elites over the poorer teams. I feel like a lot of teams, especially because of the long layoff, it's going to be weird. It's going to be a lot flatter of a standing setup. So if Marcus Stroman costs the Mets 2 games, that could be the difference between them being a second-place team getting into the playoffs that way and fighting for that 8th seed. The margins are going to be razor thin because a lot of teams aren't going to be able to distance themselves or set themselves up, and it doesn't give him time to come back and get back into it and help them. He might end up missing all 60 games because of this, so it's going to be huge.
And I'm sorry, Kev, they're also missing Noah Syndergaard as well, who had Tommy John surgery, Kev.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. The injury to Stroman is that much bigger because they don't have Syndergaard. I mean, Syndergaard, Corona or not, he was missing this year because he got Tommy John surgery in the middle of March, right around when spring training ended up ending. So that's where this injury it plays into effect. And the pitching depth that everyone was talking about that the Mets were going to have coming into this year is now gone. I mean, you lose your number 2 and number 3 starter before they even step on a mound this year. And I think the expectation is Stroman will come back at some point. But when is some point? I mean, if he misses a month, it's about 30 games already. It's half the season. So, I mean, what are you going to do?
You guys are straight on with Syndergaard. I was going to bring that up too. But you look at a pitcher coming back from injury. He wasn't throwing. Then they had the summer camp, as they called it, where he threw. And you're getting ready. When a pitcher comes back from injury, they have to rehab against live batters and everything. And when you're not rehabbing in competition and you're just scrimmaging against the other squad in a different ballpark, you wonder how much that will affect a pitcher coming back too, because those guys aren't playing games as well. So it wonders how long a rehab start or something else will take, especially in this shortened season with no minor leagues, where how a rehab start will be affected and how a pitcher coming back will be behind, or if they'll be right on target with that without a rehab start, or just pitching simulated games and get back into that rhythm of the season, which there isn't really much of a rhythm of the season anyway, which is starting in July instead of April.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because on paper, and this is a bold statement from me, on paper, this Mets team was a World Series roster. And if Yoenis Cespedes can be who he is, Nick, if he can be who he once was, regardless of him running at 75 to 80% in summer camp or in the exhibition games against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, and with him fighting a wild boar, he hasn't been playing in 2 years. He hasn't played in 2 years because of his heels and surgery, and now he's mainly a designated hitter. I saw a stat where I think it was in Las Vegas, in the sports book, 3,500 to 1 with Yoenis Cespedes hitting 20 or more home runs in a 60-game season.
Well, he's got one.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, hey, listen, not only does he have one, if this team can do something, and I know obviously I think they just won 1-0. I think that's what it was. I don't know, Nick. Tell me I'm crazy. This team can really potentially vie for maybe for the NL East crown.
Well, don't backtrack on that.
That's a big difference.
World Series, and that makes you a crazy person. They are not a World Series roster. We've seen this every year with the Mets for their fans, and everybody hypes them up because they have these good pitchers. And then every year it ends up flatlining.
Yeah, but they've never had a roster like this, and
They went to the World Series in 2015 with a roster like better than this, an actually good team. This is not that team. There are way too many question marks. You mentioned Cespedes. This is not the same Yoenis Cespedes. He had a home run today, but let's see what we've got over more of a run. This is a guy who's years removed from being a productive player. They're now down a couple of pitchers. they didn't have much pitching depth to begin with. They signed guys like Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha, who had not been very good lately with the teams they were on. That's why they were available. They were more for veteran depth. Now they're going to be relied upon for major roles to pitch well for this team. You have question marks again in the bullpen like they do every other year. Can Edwin Diaz's numbers rebound? His underlying stuff said he was a better pitcher last year than the external numbers like ERA and win-loss and things like that showed. So can he rebound to actually being, productive on top of the fact that his underlying numbers look good? Betances is coming back from a major injury. We don't know how healthy he can stay. He came back for the Yankees last year, looked great for 2 batters, and then all of a sudden he was back out. So you can't trust him until we see it. There's just too many question marks for me on this roster to say concretely that this is definitely going to be a good team. Way too many things can go wrong way too quickly. They'll be lucky if they're top 3 in their division.
Top 3. Okay. Well, let's be real here. The Marlins are not doing anything. The Phillies are an absolute question mark. Yeah, okay, they have Joe Girardi, Didi Gregorius, a little bit of a revamp. Also, they just signed Zach Wheeler as well to a questionable high deal. Kevin, the last 5 minutes before you have to go, what are your thoughts on the Mets being a better than an NL East division crown team?
Well, yeah, like you first said World Series, and they're not a World Series team.
On paper, they're on paper. That's for sure.
Well, if you told me that if they were somehow we knew a 60-game season was coming in the beginning of March, I might hear you out. If they had a Noah Syndergaard and a Marcus Stroman available, I wouldn't say you're as crazy. But no Syndergaard, no Stroman, they're not a World Series team. Can they compete for a division crown? Maybe. The Braves are good. The Nationals are good. The Phillies are good. And the Mets are good. I think if you had to rank them 1 through 4, you'd go Braves, Nationals, and then Phillies and Mets tied for third, like third and fourth, tied for third. Can they win the division? Yeah. Will they? I'm not sure because I don't want to beat around the bush here, but there's just way too many question marks. Yoenis Cespedes, how long is he going to last? How long is Robinson Cano going to last? You have Pete Alonso. He had one of the best rookie years in MLB history. Can he repeat that? If you're a betting man, you got to say no. Obviously he's not going to hit 52 home runs in a 60-game season, but do you think he's going to hit 30 in a 60-game season? I don't. Do you think he's going to hit 25? I'm not sure. Can they make the playoffs in this new playoff format? Yeah, they can. Will they advance further than, first, second round? I don't think so.
It's so tough because you look and you say to yourself, there's also, and this is something else too, that spot 5th starter, Pat, we're going to get to you in a second. That spot 5th starter is also a question mark. And we've heard them saying, could Seth Lugo be that guy? And that's another question mark because at one point Wacha was the long reliever. He was the Seth Lugo that he is supposed to be now. But now Wacha is going to be that number 4 starter. Pat, your thoughts on our rival?
I think if Syndergaard and Stroman were healthy, I think they have a shot, but I think there's a lot of ifs in the bullpen and with position players producing. Again, if Syndergaard was in the season, it's a whole different story. With that new 1 through 8 playoffs, I think the Mets would just get into the playoffs. And then with those 3 solid starting pitchers, you've seen it before, you could rely on them to get some wins in the playoffs and maybe make a run at a World Series. But there's too many questions with Familia, Betances coming back, Edwin Diaz in the bullpen, that it's really tough to win games without a solid bullpen in the MLB when your starters aren't 100%. And right now, outside of DeGrom, no one's really 100% for the Mets right now, and you really don't know what they're going to give them.
Fellas, in the last couple of minutes before Kevin has to go, I got to ask all 3 of you. Let's get our MVP choices and also our comeback player of the year choice. Who wants to go first? American League MVP.
I'll go first because mine's the same guy. Giancarlo Stanton wins MVP and comeback player of the year.
Both. Okay. Nick.
I do think Stanton's going to end up winning Comeback Player of the Year. He can't get hurt in 60 games, right? He gets hurt every year, and that's his terrible thing. All he's got to do is stay healthy for 60 games, and he should be a shoo-in because his number.
I mean, they talked about it on the broadcast yesterday. I think he's going to do really well with no fans.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the crowd pressure is hugely off his shoulders now. He looks thinner, trimmer. I think he'll be much better off staying healthy this year. MVP, I think, is a solid choice as a dark horse candidate, but I'm going to go safe with Mike Trout because if anybody out there is going to have a great year, you know it's going to be Mike Trout. It's going to be 60 games. He has Anthony Rendon on his team now, so maybe it'll actually make his life a little easier in the box. He's not the only competent major league hitter there, so that might make a big difference if he has Rendon batting behind him. We could see really outstanding work from Trout in a shortened season. But I will agree with Stanton as my Comeback Player of the Year.
I agree with the other two on the Comeback Player of the Year, where if Stanton hits the ball like he did last night, which he very well can, he looks trim, he looks healthy, he'll be the comeback player, and then it's just hard to take the MVP away from Mike Trout. He's been so good for so long on a team that hasn't been really that good, but now with a new format for the playoffs, I think if Trout plays for the whole year, the Angels can make a push, and he's going to be very important with that during the regular season and the eventual postseason run.
Kev, National League MVP.
This is tough. I feel like you can go a lot of places here. I'm going to go with my guy, though. I think he has a big year playing for his really good friend in Chicago. I'm going to go Chris Bryant.
Okay.
Contract candidate. I've drafted him in fantasy, so I'd be happy about that.
Yeah, he's playing for his – I mean, they were teammates, good friends with David Ross. I think maybe the Cubs clubhouse. I know it was pretty not lackadaisical, but easygoing with Joe Madden. But I think David Ross relates to these players, and I think the Cubs win the Central, and I think Chris Bryant's a big reason why.
My next. So
you
before, so I figured I was waiting for me to get called on. But I mean, here's the deal. It's a 60-game season. Every day counts a lot more than the normal ones do towards this kind of thing. So I'm going to take the guy who's in first place right now. Give me Kiki Hernandez, who had a 4-for-5 game last night. This guy's already got a leg up. He's only got to hold on for 51 more games. Let's go.
Pat.
MVP, I like Ronald Acuna. I like what the Braves are doing, and I think they're a young team. I think they win the East, and they're a very exciting team to watch.
All right, so before Kevin has to go, I just want to say my pick because I want you all to laugh at me. But seriously, comeback player.
Laugh at you.
Say it again.
You don't need to pick for us to laugh at you.
Comeback player of the year for me, fellas, in the American League. Ready for this one? Corey Kluber. I personally believe that he can do something in Texas. There is no pressure for him whatsoever. And not only that, because in Cleveland, they are still vying for the AL Central. And obviously, yes, you have the newly revamped Minnesota Twins with a solid 1-5, and eventually we'll be getting 2 of their starters back later on. Kev, let's hear your thought.
I was just going to say, fun fact, I just found out the other day Corey Kluber was on the Rangers. Fun fact.
I just remembered that he existed. Like I forgot about him as a baseball player until Joey just mentioned. That's a really good call for a comeback player. He's obviously an excellent pitcher when he's healthy, so he could very well go out and be an ace for the Rangers with no fans in their brand new ballpark this year.
That also looks like a warehouse, as we've been told multiple times. Yeah. Also, my National League MVP, Cody Bellinger. And my American League MVP is Mike Trout. Kevin Connolly, everybody. Really appreciate you joining us here, Kev. We'll have you back on, hopefully, the whole time you'll be able to be with us. But, Kev, thank you very much for joining us here for 63 minutes and 45 seconds. So,
thanks a lot, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And hope to be back soon.
Yeah, you'll be back here, that's for sure. Kevin Connolly, everybody, former WSJU assistant sports director. Thank you very much, Kevin. Now, goodbye. Okay, great. So he is now the weakest link. Fantastic. Now, fellas, oh boy. All right. Well, we're having a little technical difficulty there, but hopefully we'll get that back up sooner than later. So now it's just the 3 of us. Fellas, Am I wild with Corey Kluber there, or is there another comeback player of the year that we could think of that exists?
I really like the Corey Kluber pick. If I would have thought of it, I might have picked him because Stanton can be so hot and cold, and we don't know what we're ever going to get, and he could get hurt. But I don't know if I could think of anybody off the top of my head with no preparation that's really coming back from a major injury or a downslide in the American. Maybe a Francisco Lindor. Didn't he have a tough injury year last year? So he could be the kind of guy who, if he has a big 60 games, he can end up winning it. It's going to be a weird award because the season is so short. It's going to be hard to grade the normal seasons, but I think Kluber was a good pick.
Yeah.
I like it. 60-game season, anything could happen. I mean, it feels like Aaron Judge has been hurt forever just because of the talk from the offseason up until opening day, and then luckily he's healthy there. But I don't think he missed that much time. I mean, playing 100 games a year, it's not good enough to be successful, but I don't know if it's good enough to win you comeback player of the year either. He also looked very good last night, which was nice.
Really crazy stuff, but also Nick spoke about the Los Angeles Angels, and this was a topic that I've been speaking about ever since Anthony Rendon jumped ship and left the World Series champion Washington Nationals and went to Anaheim. Guys, Tommy La Stella, Justin Upton, Shohei Ohtani. Not only that,
Ohtani for bounce back player. How about that one?
Well, that's another thing too, and another thing too is obviously he has not pitched since 2018 because of the whole deal where, well, his elbow was about to fall off. And we obviously know that in Japan, they pitch almost every single day, 100-plus pitches, yada, yada, yada. Absolute disaster out there. But, yeah, is it enough for the Angels to be a force in a stacked American League West with the Astros and the Athletics?
I don't think so. I don't think they're anywhere close to either. Well, maybe close to the A's, but I really like the A's. They have a lot of good pitching there. If all those guys are healthy and no suspensions and things like that, they have a really interesting pitching staff, especially if they can add A.J. Puck, their top pitching prospect this year. They could be really dangerous. But I don't think the Angels are good enough again. Rendon's obviously a great player. He's going to make them better. If Ohtani can truly showcase both sides of his game, he's an elite player. Those will definitely help. But their pitching depth in LA just isn't good enough. They might be able to hit a decent amount with their 3 stars that I just mentioned, but their pitching, I don't think I can name a starting pitcher on that team outside of Ohtani. They're just not good enough. Their bullpen's not going to be good enough. The Astros and A's are just way too good.
I'm not counting anyone off, maybe the Orioles, but I know we're talking about the AL West, but in a 60-game season, I think if a team starts hot, there's going to be a chance they make the playoffs and could do some serious damage. I mean, baseball is a game of lulls. You have to come out hot out of the gate. I mean, you can't play. Well, I guess you can now play 500 baseball and make the playoffs, but you have to start really well, and you could keep a decent stretch going. You'll make the playoffs, and who knows what happens when you're in the playoffs. I mean, I think they're being an exciting team. I don't think they're a World Series contender, but 7-8, I think they could sneak in.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But Joey was saying in terms of competing in the division or for a World Series, you agree with me there that I don't think they can do either one of those things. I don't think they're going to – if they can come out hot, I still don't think they're good enough to even outlast. 60 games is longer than people might think. Like, a lot of teams come out hot in April, but even a normal baseball April season is only like 20 games. So you're thinking about almost getting into June of a normal schedule's worth of time. That's usually enough time to understand who's a good team and who's not. We don't see teams like the Nationals very often that start as poorly as they did and end up winning the World Series. So 60 games might be a decent enough indication of who's a good team and who's not.
19-31 is how Dave Martinez's Nationals started last year. And not only that, too, but, you see last year Tommy La Stella had a fantastic beginning to his 2019 campaign. 80 games, 295 batting average. Then, of course, he was lost for a majority of the season. But Justin Upton as well. A lot of these players signed to massive deals, old players. And I know Nick and we spoke about this, when the pandemic had just hit. And the Angels let go of most of their scouting department, most of their player development department. So a lot of it here now is just spending money, trying to get pieces together. And we'll see if Anthony Rendon is that missing piece. I don't believe so. I don't think it could possibly happen. I think it's an absolute atrocity what's going on out in Anaheim. and Ohtani too, where he did not have Tommy John surgery. They kind of gave him the Masahiro Tanaka treatment. Yeah, he's a bat as well. He is going to be the designated hitter. Albert Pujols back to first base. It's very weird. It's such a weird scenario, and not only that too, but also let's not count out the Astros. Don't count out the Athletics. And obviously, yeah, the Texas Rangers. Forget them. But it's sad to see with everything going on now. This is what we've resorted to, and really, it's sad to say, but Mike Trout will never win a World Series at this rate. Anyone want to disagree with me on this?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with the scouting department and everyone getting fired is a big step for the Angels, because that's been the biggest problem is they weren't able to home grow any talent around Mike Trout to have. They've spent the money in free agency. Ownership has tried. GMs have tried. They've brought in guys like Pujols, Justin Upton, now Anthony Rendon. They've spent a ton of money in free agency giving him talent around him that way. The fact of the matter is they didn't have anything to supplement it already there because none of their prospects panned out. They have no good young talent anywhere, it feels like. Their farm system has been a complete dud, barren landscape the entire time Trout's been a major leaguer, and it's been so disappointing. The only hope the Angels have is that Trout is such a good player that he could conceivably be the best player on the planet for another 6 or 7 years, and that gives you time to get some good talent to come up through your system in there if everything starts going right now. Maybe by the end of Trout's career, when he's maybe not the best player on the planet, but still a decent contributor, you can build a great team around him and win him like a ceremonial title where he's not like Mike Trout anymore, but he's still there, and you get to, give him a thank you gift for all the work he's done there all by himself for the first 15 of his career. But who knows? There's a lot of time, I think, left in Trout's career that they'll be able to get a good enough team at least to be able to compete before he retires or leaves.
I agree with both of you. You're good.
It's tough. It's tough because it's, and I remember, Nick, when we spoke about this, it was so difficult to see, obviously with certain, certain financial decisions or whatnot. I know you and I both did not agree with, or we did not agree with the decision. You and I agreed with that together. And it was just, it was so disappointing, especially when you see a player such as Mike Trout. He's carrying your team to, to a subpar 75 wins for his whole career. And how long has he been in the league for? Since 2012, I think. So what are we at? 6, 7 years? Or no, 8 years with him now. And they haven't made the playoffs. I think did they make the playoffs once? I don't even think they made the playoffs at all. I'm just trying to think. I don't think they made it at all.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they have.
I don't think so. Pat, you top of your head, I don't know exactly. It's just, like I said, it's just a sad situation out in Southern California. But okay, let's keep moving forward. So let's get back to our favorite sport, all three of us here, and that is hockey. So now that we've moved on from baseball, we'll get back to that a little bit later. We do want to say here from all of us at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Group, good luck to the Cubs and our good friend, Cubs hitting coach Anthony Iapoce on a fantastic season, or hopefully them. And I see Nick and Pat and also Kev also thought about the Cubs as well, doing some damage this year. So again, kudos to Long Island native Anthony Iapoce. Let's keep moving forward here, and let's get back to hockey. One little quick thing that we want to we will get into later on in the program is this here. We're all Seinfeld fans here. We'll get into that debate just a little bit later. But yesterday, fellas, the Seattle Kraken became the 32nd franchise in the NHL. So this is the new logo. There is the word mark. There's also the secondary logo, which is the anchor. And the top of the anchor, if anyone notices, is the Space Needle. So that's pretty cool there. And also, this is the jersey layout. Home on the left, road on the right. For all three of us who are all hockey fans, fellas, let's start with Pat McCormick on this one. You're a diehard Rangers fan. We'll get into, how sorry we feel for you later on. But, listen, we now have 32 teams, or we're going to have starting 21-22 season. What were your thoughts when you saw that jersey and you saw the logo?
I thought it was different, but I think it's awesome. I mean, it's the Kraken's the team name that no one else has in professional sports. I think the design's really sleek. The secondary logo with the anchor and the Space Needles, unbelievable. And just looking at the West is a little confusing with their the Central and the Pacific and everything on out there, but you have a built-in rivalry with Seattle and Vancouver. They both have like sea creatures. You have the Canucks and the Kraken. And I think it's going to be really exciting. And you didn't ask about the team, but you look at what Ron Francis did in Carolina, built a nice team there who earned the 6th seed in the East and playing the Rangers. So I hope they don't win, but they're a nice young team, a lot of good pieces. With Francis at the helm, and who knows what they'll do with the head coach, I think the Kraken are a good chance to be successful in a city with Seattle, which has that rich hockey history, winning the Stanley Cup, what was it, 103 years ago or something? So it'll be fun to watch them and do that. And I like it. I think the Pacific Northwest is a great place to grow hockey.
So my jaw is still a little messed up, like Joey mentioned, from the surgery I had. My mouth doesn't open all the way just yet, and my jaw still dropped when it saw everything yesterday. Let me tell you something. Perfect job. Perfect job on everything. I love the unique color scheme that looks nothing like anything anybody has. Beautiful set of colors that fit with each other. The water type of colors to go with their Kraken name. Unique name. Nobody else has this in any sports. Even all the college teams, I don't think there's anything like this one. I love the red accent, little bit of red accent around the two blue color tones. It all looks beautiful. The jersey design is beautiful. Every bit of merchandise. Their social media team was great. All the videos that they put together, you could tell they put really good work into every facet of their organization. I love the fact their arena is like green arena, that it's not going to have any emissions or anything like that. That's amazing. That's a really cool thing to have. Very Seattle-esque type of nuance to have in your franchise. I think their merchandise has a lot of the money going back to like local charities from things like that. I can't wait to buy a shirt or something because they're so nice. I mean, they really couldn't have done a better job with this. I love every aspect of what they've done. And I loved everything Vegas when it came out. I loved their jerseys. I didn't love the red in that one, but I love their jerseys, their original name, the color scheme that they had. I thought they did a great job. Their arena, the atmosphere. I think Seattle's just going to be a clone of that. It's going to be just as amazing, just as outstanding. And like Pat mentioned, you have a veteran GM in Ron Francis running it now. He has a template from Vegas to go off of and watch how well that worked. And now the flat cap is going to be an even better bargaining chip for Seattle because they can demand the world from everybody for their bad contracts because so many teams are going to be itching to get rid of salary to make this work. So they're in a whole position to be a great team right off the bat. You know Seattle is a great fan base, the 12th man and the Seahawks out there. The Seattle Sounders get a ton of fans in the MLS. Seattle fans are big time. They lost their basketball team. They're itching for something else. I think they're going to jump right into the hockey world as one of the best fan bases, best atmospheres, best arenas, best teams, best color schemes. I'm so excited. They're going to be amazing to watch.
Best arenas. Wow, I'm very surprised.
It's going to be one of the best arenas. This is a brand new arena they're getting. It's all going to be state of the art. You can tell that.
Technically, they are redoing Key Arena, but
right, it's gonna basically be brand new. You're right; they are redoing an arena, but you know it's gonna be outstanding. They already put all this green initiative into it. The Lewerke family has done an outstanding job of pouring money into every aspect of this. I can't imagine the inside of that arena is anything less than flawless.
And also, go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry.
They have 40,000 people on their season ticket wait list already. That just shows how excited they are. They got the deposits in 12 minutes to get an expansion team. So the people are ready. And the only one thing I don't, as a suffering Ranger fan, is I didn't like the expansion rules because the teams could be that good right away. But when you pay that much for an NHL team, I see why they do those rules and want them to be relevant right away. So it's going to be exciting to watch them when they come in 21-22.
And especially to see – go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Have they established the rules for the next one yet? I don't know how that works. Is it guaranteed that it's the same setup?
It's not. I'm just saying if it is the same, you give them time to be successful.
Agreed that it's definitely helpful to them if it's the same, but they might change things, seeing about how Vegas was so good so quick and all the leverage they're going to have because of the salary cap. They might make things a little easier for the rest of the NHL, maybe protecting an extra forward, a defenseman or something like that. But I did see something today that like players that don't have 3 years of experience are not eligible. I don't know if it's the same rule as it was last time, but I know that especially for the Islanders, that's huge. Guys like Sorokin and Dobson and Wallstrom and all their prospects that like might have played a half a season or so by then all don't have to be protected. So at least that's good that they're going to let teams keep their young talent. So we'll have to see how they are with the regular protection rules for everyone else.
Pat, your thoughts on the Rangers side. Nick was talking about the Islanders side, so let's hear your thought with the expansion draft and how that affects the Rangers.
I mean, Igor Shesterkin is going to be protected. You have a lot of younger guys coming through who are going to be protected. So I think the Rangers will be okay. There's some of those. One thing you have to worry about the Rangers prospects is they have so many defensemen, and every defenseman is supposed to be good. Obviously, like DeAndre Miller is going to be protected, which is good, and everyone else on that side is going to be protected. But I think the Rangers will be in good shape because with that entry-level deal, all the Rangers pieces are going to be on that entry-level deal, and the guys are going to sign where you probably risk losing a Ryan Strome, which is okay. I could live with that. I mean, Ryan Strome's good, but I think if you play anyone with Panarin, they'll be okay. I think the Rangers will be good shape because they have that strong farm system, and building from that strong farm system and a lot of the entry-level deals, they'll be protected already. So I think they'll be fine shape coming up.
Playing in the Climate Pledge Arena. What is Climate Pledge? That is the new name from Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos. That is basically the name. It's going to be all green. That is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, around like a 20 to 25 year naming right lease. We saw yesterday or the day before a chopper taking off the famous key off of the arena. That was a pretty cool sight. Putting it onto the helipad right next to. Or on a flatbed, actually, right next to the Space Needle. Definitely a place that I would love to go see in the near future as well. And especially as Pat brought up, too, with the budding rivalry with Vancouver. I think that is really cool because that is a drivable rivalry now. That's almost like a New York-Philadelphia type thing because both cities are so close. Now
it's beautiful, though.
Sorry?
Vancouver's a beautiful place to see.
I've never been there, so I will have to take your word for it. So now let's keep moving forward, fellas. And as we said, let's stick to hockey. This is our sport. This is the schedule, and cannot believe it. It is it's actually 8 days away. Beyond crazy. First game, of course, Rangers, Hurricanes, NBCSN. Third game of the day is Florida and the Islanders. Yay for Nick and myself. Pat, your thoughts on hockey coming back and your team being the first team out?
I like it. I mean, for my moods, if the Rangers lose, the day's going to be ruined. But I like that noon slot. Hockey players are used to playing that matinee game. You get out, you know when you're playing, so you may not get your pregame nap or your pregame skating, but you know you're playing at noon every day. When you play at the host site, you may have to worry about getting in that routine. What if a game goes to overtime? What if this? You know what time you're playing every day, at least for the first two for the Rangers, which is good, so that they're going to be able to get into their routine. They're playing at noon the first 2 days. Nothing should be broken there. Nothing can be dragged out. You know you have the first game, so you just have to be ready to play when the puck drops at noon. So I'm not worried there. The team will be ready to play. They played noon games before. It's those games at like 3 o'clock, which is luckily that round-robin game where if it gets stuck behind, the game doesn't really mean anything. But it's just going to be tricky like an NCAA tournament. If a game goes 4 or 5 overtimes, how does the team stay fresh? You're not going to get that warm-up in before, or let me rephrase, when you play regularly, you kick the soccer ball around before warm, so you may not know when that's going to happen. So it's staying fresh, getting ready for that warm-up, and then the 16-minute period right before the puck drops. How are you going to stay fresh and ready to go once the puck does drop? Because these games start right away, and they mean stuff right away. So if you guys start slow, you fall down 1 to 2 games, your season may be over just like that. It's about preparation, and I think playing the first game is very important.
It's so tough because just to clarify and just to correct you, Pat, I don't mean to be that guy and correct you, but the 3 o'clock game on that Saturday is actually going to be Chicago and Edmonton, which
actually in Edmonton, still in Canada, just completely across the country. That's my bad.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But what I do want to say to that is that Nick and myself, and actually Tyler, and I think Rob DeLuca as well, on our hockey special show, we chose we chose Chicago to win that qualifying round. Pretty cool stuff. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as we said, hockey is officially back, starting in 8 days. And I believe on Wednesday, is the first the first exhibition game between Islanders and Rangers, I believe, in the bubble. Really cool stuff. And on top of it, fellas, we get a look of what these bubbles are going to look like. Here we go. That's pretty cool, if I'm not mistaken. To me, that looks a little like a club scene almost, and you have a hockey rink in the club almost.
I was kind of hoping there'd be real bubbles.
Oh man, but listen, I will say this: the way that this looks, it looks as if that the seats are closed off, which I'm very confused by. We were talking about it actually, Nick, with Al, with Al Carl, and also with Tyler, and obviously every rink is built differently. Everything is built differently. So, in terms of the social distancing, like how we see with Major League Baseball now, it's all over the place, all over the ballpark. Here, it looks like they're all going to be together. But also, it can be because you're in a bubble for 14 days. And we get to also look at what the outside looks like as well in the city of Toronto. So, for those that have never been to Toronto, and Pat, have you ever been to Toronto?
I have. I've been to 4 or 5 games over there. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm sure you kind of can picture where this is talking about here, and BMO Field and that Hotel X over there is where the round robin team. So the top 4 teams will be staying. They get a little more high maintenance, if you will. But then also the other teams are going to be staying at the Fairmont Royal York Hotel. And the reason why we bring this up is because I love this bubble, and I think that it is one of the smartest things that a professional sports or professional league can do. Especially in this time, we don't want to infect others, and obviously, I don't want to get off topic with this or go into anything political. But again, I just have to say my personal opinion. This is phenomenal the way that it is. Unfortunately, though, it is a little bit of a hike from BMO Field to Scotiabank Arena. If you know the city of Toronto, you have to get onto the expressway, and unfortunately, there's no subway that takes you directly to there. You have to take the extension subway and then get to Union Station, which unfortunately is a little bit of a hike. But for the players, obviously, it's not bad. City of Edmonton, I don't really know. It looks like it's more walking distance, though, than the city of Toronto. Nick, go ahead.
Aren't they not allowed to take mass transit? Don't they have to have their own team buses and stuff like that take them? I thought the whole point was that.
I'm just saying, notably.
Oh, in general, okay. I was like,
yeah,
wait a minute, they're not riding the subway. That's bad.
No. And honestly, and by the way, also, and I think Pat can attest to this, one of the nicest subway systems that I've ever been on as well. Pat, your thought on the way that Toronto is all laid out, and especially Edmonton as well. We don't want to forget about our friends out west.
I think it's good, and it's just keeping the players healthy, especially a game like hockey. A little different than baseball because there are guys can be hitting each other. They're going to be checking each other, so you are going to breathe on someone. So if you could isolate them and keep it away from everyone else and close to the arena, you're going to eliminate the chances of people getting sick, because if you want high-intensity hockey game, people are going to have to interact with each other. So I think the quarantine in the bubble is the right way to go.
Yeah, and I know, Nick and I have agreed on this as well. The bubble is 100% the way. Is 100% the way to go. The NBA is doing it. The NFL, we don't know what the deal is going to be there. But again, not so much about the bubble, but more on the lines of that hockey is back. Again, this is the schedule here. There's hockey all day. Do not call me. Do not text me. Do not email me. Do not LinkedIn message me. I don't want to hear from you. That goes for everybody that is watching this. I'm sorry for the negative attitude, but hockey is back. I know Pat can agree with me here because we are both right now in a little bit of a funk without college sports, so we have some time on our hands. Am I right, Pat?
Yes, and just to point out 2 series, I know this was part of the question. I think that Edmonton-Chicago series is going to be really fun to watch because Edmonton has that talent with McDavid and Draisaitl and everyone else, but you're playing against Canes and Taves, and in the best of 5, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the question is going to be in net. Is it going to be Malcolm Subban or just seeing what happens there? But I think that's going to be very exciting. And just the 8-seed Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, the Maple Leafs have so much firepower. They have Marner, Matthews, a guy who I'm probably not allowed to name on this go all the way over, but they have so much firepower all the time, and they can never get past that first round. And luckily, they're not playing the Bruins right away, but you're hosting it, and you have that 1967 drought coming on. How does one of the host cities, they're actually both host cities, how do they adjust to being a little bit more familiar with everything going on and taking on the series rather than people who may not be as familiar as the Maple Leafs are with Toronto and the Oilers are with Edmonton?
Yeah, that is.
Those are my two series a lot.
I like your analogy, and Pat, you don't have to say the name because we've got you right here. That's good enough.
It's just amazing, and this is where I'm going to get kicked out. One guy goes to Toronto 2 years ago in July. It's an issue. A whole team goes to Toronto July now, and everyone cheers for him. It's pretty funny how that works.
It's wild, but remember, though, for all the Islanders fans watching, here you are.
And that's where I get kicked off the show. It was fun, guys. Thank you.
No, it's all right. Listen, I feel bad for Toronto. The Islanders have been the better team both of those years. We won a playoff series. They didn't.
Yep, that's true.
Oh, sorry, you got that $11 million baggage. We have a better team. Sucks to suck.
There you go.
With the Islanders, it's one of those coaches where Trotz plays such a structure. You don't really have to go into that run and gun. You'll be structured. You have the goaltenders. You have that structure will help you win a playoff series. So I think the Islanders with Trotz are in a good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And obviously, Pat, you got to come back on another show where we just speak about specifically hockey. And Nick knows, obviously, it was very easy to speak about hockey for 2 long hours on our Hockey Week show presented by Blue Line Deli and Bagels. That show, obviously, you just speak about hockey the whole time and you don't get sick and tired of it. It's really amazing because hockey is just, our favorite sport. Speaking of the New York Islanders, fellas, and just because here, I know, Pat, you can close your eyes at this here, but the new building here is now named UBS Arena. It was just announced a few days ago that UBS signed a contract with the New York Islanders and with the Oakview Group. Oak Hill, thinking of basketball already, and the Oakview Group. And it's a 20-year deal worth about $275 million. UBS Arena at Belmont Park, most likely it will be called. Pretty cool stuff there, and it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be a lot of similarities too, from what we're reading on Twitter. Staples Center, Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Edmonton's Rogers Place. There's a lot of cool things about it, and now with a naming partner. There might be a possibility where a lot of these teams and a lot of these free agents out there, Nick Partain, might say, well, we have a naming right. We have a naming right partner, or this team does, and they actually have a structure. They have a head coach. They have a general manager. They have a building. They also have a home. They also have everything. And I think also because, yes, it's naming rights, it's whatever. But I think for those viewers out there that think, okay, well, why are we spending more than 35 seconds on this? It's because it means so much more, especially for the Islanders organization, because of what has gone on since the John Spano era, since locker rooms getting flooded with sewage at the county-owned Nassau Coliseum, going to the Barclays Center where we're seeing, only one goal and a whole side of a basketball arena obstructed during Game 6 of the 2016 Stanley Cup playoffs, Stanley Cup quarterfinals against Florida, and seeing a 23-year playoff drought, ruined. This helps the organization so much by just having a viable name partner to go on their arena and to say that we are serious about business. Nick, I want to hear your thoughts on that, or if you think that this conversation should have ended 3 minutes ago.
I mean, I get what you're saying. For everyone that's not an Islander fan, this is like, oh, okay, they got a sponsor. But it is pretty cool. They're getting a lot of revenue from this. It's very big for them. They haven't had an arena sponsor, since, I guess, technically Barclays Center, but it wasn't really the Islanders arena, so it doesn't really count. But they have an actual sponsor for their arena. The Coliseum only got NYCB Live after they left. So this is a new thing for them. It's a big-time bank, so it's a big-time entity to have on your building. It's just, it looks normal. For the Islanders, having anything normal happen is funny because they just never, ever get that lucky. And I love how you said everything's in place now. They have a brand new practice facility, a top-tier president, a top-tier coach, a top-tier arena. Everything's going to fall into place. We're all ready for free agents. We have no cap space. So everything's ready except for the one thing that you need for free agents, and that's the cap space to sign them. So we'll have to wait a little bit before they can go big game hunting, I'm sure. But it's just going to be so nice starting in that 2021 season to have a normal franchise setting, a location, an arena, stability in the head coach, front office, a decent team at the very least. They're not going to bottom out, I don't think, at least before a couple more years pass and all these guys get older. But I mean, everything's going to be normal. All the headaches of nonsense that we've had to go around outside of the hockey team are finally going to be gone. And that's really what this is a kind of a culmination of everything, that they're able to get an actual sponsor for their arena because they finally have an arena.
Well, Pat, you were taking a nap. Do you have anything to add with that on your arch rival?
I think the Islanders in New York is good for hockey, and if you don't say that, I think that's a problem. I mean, I enjoyed a Ranger-Islander rivalry. It was sad. I mean, going to Brooklyn a couple times and seeing the empty stadium, because the Islander fan base is passionate. They know their hockey. They know what they're doing, and it's just a lot of fun. And just to go out to the arena, I think there's so much room for possibilities with where it is, the location. Like, the one thing at the Coliseum is nice. You have the tailgates. No, you can still tailgate at Belmont, but there's also room for like a fan courtyard like they do in Jersey, and just make it that much interactive. I mean, I really think they should throw a sports book in there, generate more revenue, but that's not legal yet, so that's not really a good idea. But there's so much. It's just nice for the Islanders to have that arena, start building the franchise, because I think the NHL wins when New York does well. And you saw it at the end of this year. The Rangers played the Islanders in two of them weren't great, but two of the games were great. The other two games weren't great. There were two blowouts, but the teams are there. The teams are taking that next step towards NHL greatness if they can keep it up. And with the new Islander arena, I think this rivalry does have a couple more years to it, if not more. I mean, you look at the Ranger-Islander rivalry, you have these two young Russian goalies who will be hopefully there for the next 10 to 15 years, who are friends. And there's so much to build off that. With the Islanders having a stable home, it makes it that much more fun.
Yeah, it makes it not only so much more fun, but also, it makes it a watchable game where it's not a one-sided blowout. Where and on top of it, seeing a one-sided blowout in seeing all the Ranger fans at the Coliseum, now you can eventually see a legitimate home. Most likely, we're still going to see, because, and we've said this all the time, the New York Rangers are number one here in New York. They are. It's just we have to deal with it. Islanders are number two, and Buffalo is number three, and they'll always stay number three because they're terrible, and Jack Eichel is most likely going to be gone somewhere else. We'll get to that at some point else, or at another time. But, it's, again, just to see it at a brand-new building that should be nice, a brand-new naming partner, their own naming partner, it is really, really cool stuff. So, fellas, again, for those that are just tuning in, we cannot thank Patrick McCormick for coming on here, being a part of the rotational fourth host. So really, it's been a ton of fun here so far. Obviously, Pat's going to be back on here to talk more hockey all the time. He will be a mainstay, or I hope you're going to be a mainstay on here. You come on whenever, when hopefully, as we know, we have a lot of time, because college sports is not coming back till at least January 1st for the two of us here.
I'm here.
I'm here
whenever you need. I said I'm here whenever you need me. I'm a little rusty today. I'm not as sharp as I normally am. It's just coming off that COVID layoff. And once the game starts, I'm ready to go.
That's all right. That's all right. Listen, I'm here, and I'm having hiccups here, and I'm literally hiccups. And Nick could barely open his mouth here. Listen, and Tyler's not here, so we're all a little rusty. With about 12 minutes, or excuse me, 22 minutes. I can't do math. See, where's Nick? Where's my mathematician? Unbelievable. See, mental math. It's not in Joe's brain. And speaking of talking about third person, which, folks, we will get to in just a few minutes, we're going to have a little bit of a debate here as the Jimmy, which I see here. We spoke about the third person because, Joey needs to do this. Joey needs to do that. We'll get there a little bit later. So let's keep moving forward, fellas. And it's a disaster down in Orlando. It's not a disaster in terms of the bubble. But for a specific New York team, and one New York team that has made the playoffs by the skin of their teeth or have made the return to play format in the NBA, is the Brooklyn Nets. Why? Because they're missing, obviously, Kevin Durant, who was not projected to play. There was some rumors that, okay, maybe he could come back and, test that Achilles out, but he's not going to take any chances. DeAndre Jordan said no of COVID. Spencer Dinwiddie said no because of COVID. Taurean Prince said no because of COVID. Wilson Chandler, he opted out because he wanted to spend more time with his family. And Kyrie Irving is just a dunce. So Kyrie Irving as well, that leaves now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players, 5 players if we exclude Kevin Durant. It's a disaster. We saw the Nets and the Magic a couple of days ago. The Nets were blown away. Jarrett Allen can only do so much. Karis LeVert, they can only do so much. Karis LeVert, actually, fellas, which is a pretty sad statement, is now the leading scorer from pre-March 12th with 17.7 points per game and 39 games played. Nick Partain, who is an NBA fan, I have to go to you here, and I have to say to you, how quick will the Nets be heading back to New York?
I'm sure they'll be out in their first round. We have to see where their seeding ends up shaking out, but you're right. They're just devoid of talent right now. They had too many guys either hurt, sick, weird things. They signed Michael Beasley off the street. He has COVID. He can't even play. They tried that. They signed a couple of other guys, but basically they're just trying to get warm bodies out there. For the Nets, it's all about surviving this little run in the bubble to make sure none of the guys that are playing get long-term injuries, and it's all about next year. Kevin Durant will come back. Kyrie Irving hopefully will be more motivated with Durant there and healthy. Karis LeVert will be further removed from his big injury. We'll have to see what kind of front office moves they make. We don't know if Jared Allen's going to get traded or not. We don't know if Joe Harris is going to get re-signed. We don't know how that's going to work. We don't know how their bench is going to shake out. But for the Nets, it's all about next year. And we really knew that coming in because we knew Durant was going to miss this season. Only by a miracle would he have come back at any point, and he took the safe route. And I think the team is doing the right thing in playing this safe. He's coming off a very serious injury you don't want to play with. So if everybody's full strength next year for the Nets, they can come out next year and be a competitive team. But this year, it wasn't going to happen anyway. So at this point, trot out the scrubs, trot out your young guys, try some different things, experiment. You have a new coach in there because you inexplicably, to me, fired Kenny Atkinson. You have that to deal with. So there's too many moving parts. It's going to be a one and done. Get in, stay safe, try some things out, rotate some guys, get out of there healthy and happy, and be ready for next season.
The craziest part about this is that Nick remembers a name for sure that is on that roster who's actually going to be starting for the Brooklyn Nets, and his name is Lance Thomas because they have nobody. Lance Thomas is going to be starting, and also who's going to be starting at the point? 40-year-old Jamal Crawford is going to be starting.
I have a friend who's a diehard Nets fan, and every time they made a signing, I'm like, dude, you got another one, another guy. Like, I really wanted to see Jamal Crawford and Michael Beasley out there at the same time, just chucking it every 5 minutes. I would have checked in for every game if I could see something that fun. Those other guys are just going to shoot. It's going to be a freaking fiasco of guys just whipping shots from everywhere. There's going to be no cohesion, no teamwork, no actual system or anything. It's going to be a freaking street game out there with this guy. So it's going to be really fun to watch the Nets out there, at least for that reason. That there's going to be so much I don't care going on in that team that it's going to be a really entertaining game. But I was really hoping for Beasley because he's such a fun character. But too bad he was sick, and we hope all the best for him. But I'm going to miss him.
And is it a coincidence too? We're having such a fun time, a disastrous Nets team. We're having a fun time in Disney World. Pat, your thought, or if you have any thoughts, if you want us to move on, we sure can as well.
I'm just saying, I watched 4 of those guys play in the G League this year with the Long Island Nets, and I'm just happy they're getting that shot, being Musa, Christiosa, Justin Anderson. I'm forgetting the other guy, but for guys like that, it's an opportunity. You're being thrown into playoff-esque basketball, and you have a shot to prove yourself to maybe be one of those guys who gets to play with Kyrie and Kevin Durant next year. So it's an opportunity. I think they're going to compete. I just don't think the talent is there with so many guys opting out and not being healthy to play, unfortunately, that they're going to be able to advance. But I think it's going to be a chance for guys to prove what they have at this level or don't have and able to fight. Because, I mean, watching Musa, Christiosa is a quick point guard, and then Justin Anderson, just a very intense player overall. It's going to be fun to see them play at the next level.
That's actually a really good point, because when you have a team laden with so many high-paid superstars, you need cheap guys to be able to play off your bench and contribute. So if those young guys can show that they have an ability to carve out a niche role when all the superstars come back, that's absolutely huge. If you can have guys that are from your own team making very little money that can contribute, is huge. So those guys really do have opportunities to make the team next year. They're going to need cheap young talent.
Yeah, and also just to mention about Pat too. On top of every other job, if you know Pat, he goes from job to job to job to job, and one of those jobs in the middle, he is one of the stats people for the Long Island Nets, which is really a cool thing. So he gets to see the players, at firsthand, and he also gets to tell these guys what he considered. Did he score it right? Are they going to yell at him? Are they going to throw stuff at you? When you botch a call or anything along those lines. So really cool stuff. To be a Nets employee, Pat, is pretty cool. So let's keep moving forward here. And something else here that I want to bring up here. We were talking about Disney World, and this, fellas, is something that is it is a magic band, it's called. And it's called Magic Band because obviously we have Mickey Mouse on the front. But it's also because we got the wrong one there. So the reason why it is being used by the NBA is not only because we're in Disney World, but also because when Disney World shut down, all of those went to waste. And apparently they all are programmed for a certain time and they get thrown out afterwards, or they get kept or whatever as a souvenir. So with that being said, we've seen also the NBA, they've kept up something with a barber shop. It's almost like something out of a video game. And it's so cool with this bubble. We spoke about this earlier. I don't want to, get into this because, of course, we have our Seinfeld stuff to get into. But it's wild to see that this whole thing with Disney World, obviously I'm not talking about the television deal with ESPN, because obviously ESPN is Disney and Mickey Mouse and whatever. But they're able to use this, and they're also able to build these pop-up shops, pop-up barber shops, food stands, wherever it is, while Disney World is still open in certain things. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. But a certain section of Orlando is closed off for these, for these ball players that are in the bubble down there. Really, really cool stuff. And at least they're also able to use it. The cool thing is that it's made of plastic or a little bit of rubber on there. And it's called like a passport to get into certain places. It really is, fellas, like Disney World. You are in Disney World. And a lot of these players are getting treated, like kids. You have to go in there, but at some time you have to get treated like an adult and make sure you wash up every time you go someplace. So enough of that spiel. Let's keep moving forward here one more time. Kudos to our good friend at USL Championship. Nick, we were talking about this because now I have latched onto a specific soccer team. It's not one that you watch. Or anyone else really watches, but USL Championship, it is the path to pro. Our good friend Connor McGlynn made his professional debut, a midfielder from FA Euro New York. He was also a part of the Siena Saints in the MAC. And, really cool stuff to see someone that I text pretty frequently on television playing professional soccer. So kudos to him. And the Hartford Athletic actually started 2-0-0 on the season. So really cool stuff, and we hope to see them obtain Group F as they were able to handle both New York Red Bull 2 and Loudoun FC. So let's stick to soccer for 1 second. Nick Partain's NYCFC, they are moving on in the MLS is Back tournament. Nick, you are our MLS guy. Talk about your team going up against Toronto FC, who at one point, a couple of years ago, were the champions.
So 2 words about them having to play Toronto this round. Of course. They have been knocked out of the playoffs by Toronto a few times recently. They've gotten their bells rung by Toronto a few times the past few years. This is a team they have serious bugaboos against. Even though NYCFC has been one of the best teams with Toronto, Toronto has flat out had their number when it matters. So this is one of those where you're just like, yeah, we know how this is going to go. It's going to be a really tough matchup for them. And also it's a tough matchup because NYCFC looked pretty bad during the group stage. Their first game, they lost 1-0 to the Philadelphia Union, who's the team that's talent-wise on the same plane as NYCFC, so it wasn't that disappointing. But NYC vastly outplayed Philly, and they just couldn't put a goal across. NYC didn't score any goals during the 2 regular season games they had before the pandemic struck, so this is a team that's had a lot of trouble scoring, obviously. Then those problems popped up again in Game 1. Game 2 against Orlando, they got their bells rung. They lost 3-1. It was a game where they got blitzed right off the bat, gave up 2 quick goals early on. Were able to push one across right before halftime to get off the goal snide. It had been 3.5 games basically at that point. They finally got a goal, but they couldn't push the equalizer across and ended up giving up a third. So they were 0-2 after the first 2 group games, and it looked dire that they might not be able to move on. Thankfully, they were able to win their last game against Miami 1-0, and then they needed a couple of other moving parts from all these other group teams to miraculously be able to get in. They were the last team to make the group stage, because of the game last night between the LA Galaxy and Houston Dynamo ended up being a draw on a 90th minute goal from the LA Galaxy's Christian Pavone. So it ended up saving them because if Houston won that game 1-0, NYC would have been knocked out. Houston would have gotten that spot. But because of the draw, NYC gets in. Thankfully, they're able to get in and at least salvage some respect, I guess. But Toronto's a really tough matchup. They would take a lot to beat them. Toronto looked great in the group stage. They're going to be a very, very, very tough team to beat. I'd be shocked if NYC is able to move on.
And not only that, too, the wild part is that, which actually I did not know. So this MLS is back tournament does not mean that once you're eliminated, you're done for the whole year, because there will be a mini season afterward that is still to be determined. And obviously, we did see, Nick, your arch rival, the New York Red Bulls. They were eliminated just a couple of days ago, or I think it was a couple of days ago. It feels like a month ago. But with a couple of days, like I said, a couple of days ago, they were eliminated. They're not done for this year yet, but they are done in the bubble in Orlando. So definitely some cool stuff there. Again, there's a lot of sports coming back and a lot of sports stateside. We are all extremely happy to see that. MLS is back tournament, NYCFC and Toronto, as Nick said. Be sure to tune in for that on the networks of ESPN. Fellas, I think it's time in the final few minutes. I think a lot of the sports stuff here for us is done for now. And I think next week we'll get back to that. But now that I look back at my notes, the only thing that I could think of, with too much sports, guys, now, and I can't believe I'm saying that. And Pat, I know, is probably thinking, what the hell is Joe saying? Too much sports. Are you kidding? This is what we live and breathe for. But every night at 11 o'clock at night on Channel 11, Nick knows this because he's been over here with me watching.
I don't watch at home every night, too.
Sorry, say it again?
I watched it at home every night, too, man. We're both doing the same thing.
Well, when you're here, when we were doing this show on location for a little bit, we did do that just before Rick and Morty. And someone came up, actually, someone that both Patrick and I know, Newsday Joe Maniello. Newsday's Joe Maniello had come up with a graphic for the best Seinfeld episodes in a bracket format, such as like a March Madness bracket. So let's take a look at this. So we do have a few viewers here watching, and there are certain regions. And Pat, because we are college basketball fans, we work in college basketball, we need a little bit of a fix where we need to have a Sweet 16, an Elite 8 of something. And especially because we all watch Seinfeld. I believe you do, right, Pat? Yeah, you do.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I was going to say. So this is this fits right in. Let's look at this and let's take a peek and see if we agree with Joe Maniello on some of the the positions for some of these episodes here. So the contest being, I think that's number 1, if my eyesight is right. The Soup Nazi down there, right in the middle. The Junior Mint, of course. And these are all in the Master of Your Domain region. Wow, this is something. And you know, I gotta ask you, Nick. You filled this out yesterday, and you spent most of your day doing this.
I was working, Jill. I wasn't filling out my bracket the whole day.
I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Well, let me work
in my spare time. I did fill it out on
There you go.
I'm referencing it. I had such a good time filling this out. I put a lot of effort into each one of the matchups. If I didn't remember every aspect, every storyline of an episode, I researched it to remember and jog my memory, and I really put a lot of effort into filling it out. The only disappointment I have is he had to cut it down to make it into this bracket. So I actually commented with him back and forth after I put mine out. Some of my favorite episodes did not make the bracket, which I was very disappointed in. But he said they had a committee to approach to see who would get in, and they had a couple of play-in rounds that they voted on. That one of my favorite episodes got voted out in a play-in round. One just didn't get considered at all for the bracket, which I was very disappointed by. But the ones that were there are excellent. All the core ones, the ones that are the most known by people, the biggest name episodes, The Strike with Festivus, Serenity Now, the puffy shirt, the contest. Those are the episodes that everybody knows, even if you don't watch the show. So at least they got the highlight ones in there. And I was still able to fill out a bracket that ended up with a winner as one of my favorite episodes that I think is underrated by most people because it was not very close to being a 1 seed in any bracket. So I'm excited that I have a dark horse winning this whole thing, even though it's probably not going to win the general bracket.
Pat, your thoughts on this bracket here?
I mean, I watched Seinfeld. I'm not very up to date on the names of the episode. I am upset. I could have missed it, but the nap wasn't up there where George takes a nap under his desk, then calls in the bomb, and Steinbrenner stays in the office while he wants him to leave. I didn't see it on there, and I think that's a very good episode.
It was not on the bracket, but that was a good one. I love that. He has the guy build him the desk under there. He's got all the compartments and like
and he has his grandkids there.
On there. Fantastic job. Love that episode. He gets trapped under there because he has Jerry calling the bomb threat to try and get them all to leave, and it ends up making them all bunker down in his office. So very, very funny episode.
I'm so disappointed not to see that, but everything else looks pretty good. And it reminds me of the summers in Brooklyn because once a summer with the Cyclones, they have Seinfeld night. So it's a really good night. So it reminded me of going to the ballpark. It reminded me of March Madness. So it's a fun thing to do. And now that not working as much, I am enjoying catching up on the Seinfeld episodes and get to know the names of the episodes. Because I would just watch them and enjoy it and not really know the names of the episodes and everything that goes into it. But great show. A lot of fun doing a bracket like this.
Yeah, it's you look at the C was angry that day region. That's phenomenal.
Well, because the names of the regions are by I think the number 1 seed of that region.
Right.
They were named, so those
yeah. That's it's really unbelievable. Hire this man region. No soup for you, of course. Really, and to be completely honest with you, there. I did see a few other brackets, and I saw that one made to the Elite Eight, which I couldn't stand, and I thought that was awful. Nick, was the Chinese restaurant. That one should not have made it to the Elite Eight. I don't remember who it was, but it was some random person on Twitter I saw it. It made it to the Elite Eight, and I was looking, and I was like, I don't think so. I'm not really a fan of that one, and that one was better than Frogger. I don't think so. If those two went head to head, I don't think so for sure.
See, I liked the episode, but it didn't have any Kramer in it. That's what was the problem for me. There was no Kramer in that. When I was thinking back, I'm like, where's Kramer's storyline? And I realized there just wasn't one. He wasn't in there. But I liked the episode. I liked that it was all in one spot. I liked the whole concept of waiting for a restaurant. We've all been there, sitting, waiting, being starving, wondering who's next. Who do we get there before? It was pretty well done. I liked Elaine going over and going to dare to eat the egg roll, and she tries to whisper to the old people they don't hear. It was a decent episode. I believe I had it only winning 1 round. I had it beat the Frogger. I liked it a little better than the Frogger episode. I thought that one was good. Holes! We need holes! Line, George yelling at the electrician guy trying to get the machine out of there. I did have the Chinese restaurant winning 1 round and then losing to the calzone. Kramer cooking his freaking clothes was just so classic. That was so great. Him fighting with the pizzeria guy in Italian and then kicking his shoe up on the counter is one of the all-time great scenes. So every part of this was great, reliving every one of these episodes. But I do have to publicly come out and say the sniffing accountant not being on there is criminal, especially the accountant. That episode was great. Kramer going incognito as the freaking on the accountant guy to try and catch him. He ends up hitting his head on the bar thing, comes up and hits him. And then he ends up drinking the beer with the cigarette. Like, that's such a classic Kramer scene that I can't believe that didn't make it based on that. And then one that gets no attention from anybody that is truly one of my favorite episodes is the slicer. When Kramer has the slicer, he's got the butcher coat on. George is trying to airbrush himself out of the picture in Kruger's office. And then Kramer ends up accidentally being the doctor that takes the picture and is doing the scan. He wants to take a section of Kruger because he sees the mole. He wants to take the slicer to him. George is freaking out. It also has one of my favorite underrated lines that gets no attention whatsoever, but it's classic. When Kramer and George are standing outside of Kruger's office right before he's about to go in, and Kramer just goes to, like, George is explaining the plan and what Kramer can do, and Kramer just goes, "You're really cooking up a little scheme here, aren't you?" I mean, about it. I freaking lose it every time. It's all worked up. And Kramer's just like, cooking up a little scheme here, aren't you? Oh my God, it's so good. I could rant about Seinfeld for 2 hours, but I'll let you get back in. So funny.
Absolutely wild stuff. But we are actually out of time. We cannot thank Patrick McCormick enough for coming on here as our rotational fourth host. We really do appreciate you coming on. You say you were rusty. I don't believe that. We really had a fun time with you, and I cannot wait to speak about hockey because I cannot wait for Rangers Islanders banter when hockey comes back, because that is going to be a lot of fun, Pat. Really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yep. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to talking hockey, and hopefully both teams can make a run. I'm not sure if I could survive banter for a 7-game series, but hopefully they could both make it pretty far and see what happens. I'm just excited to sit on my couch all day and watch hockey and not do anything else.
There you go. Tons of fun. So before we finish up here, ladies and gentlemen, the Essential Wrestling Podcast, episode number 13, will come your way with Al Carl, John DeConti, John Smith, and Tyler Adelle on Tuesday, July 28th, starting at 6 p.m. right here on the Eastern Observer YouTube and Facebook as well. Going to be tons of fun. Also, we are partnered with the New York Professional Scouts Association, partly funded by Major League Baseball. The Scouts Minute and the Scouts Report will be back. We will be featuring the late former scouting director of the Baltimore Orioles, Tom T-Bone Giordano, starting tomorrow, July 25th at 11 a.m. Also, the extended version, which starts on Sunday, the Scouts Report, episode number 5 of the same aforementioned Tom Giordano, will begin at 11 a.m. on the New York Pro Scouts channels, along with the Eastern Observer. For more information, please log on to the Eastern Observer website, easternobserver.com, or follow us on the bottom. There's all of our social media handles on the bottom, so I don't have to go into that. Anything else? I think we are good. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, for Kevin Connolly, who was on here earlier, Patrick McCormick, my sidekick and friend as well, Nick Partain, I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Group, we'll see you next time.